Hi, welcome back to the Procreate Basics series. Today is episode 3. Today we'll be learning all about canvas size and layers limit. So have you ever wondered why your project is so blurred when you zoom in up close? If you choose a very small canvas size, your artwork will be very low res, and when you zoom in, it will be all pixelated, so you have to use a fairly large size. So today we'll be getting all in depth about all this. In today's tutorial, we'll also be learning about how to create a project, dimensions, and the size, and also dot per inches, layers limit, color profile, time-lapse setting, and statistics as well. So let's get started. Today we're going to talk all about canvas size, and so we're going to launch Procreate and we're going to try and create a new canvas by tapping on the plus sign here. And here we see that there are a couple of settings here. So let's try and go through them and see what kind of canvas size should you use in what circumstances. So I'm just going to try and get the default setting, which is the screen size. You can either see a screen size or a retina screen size maybe. So if you tap here, you automatically create a new canvas, but today we're not going to do this. So we're going to delete this. So now we'll go back to the screen, and now we're going to go and check out my A4 size. So A4 size is 210mm by 297mm, and the DPI is 300 with the maximum layers at 57. This is actually my default setting for anything, for like any portraits that I want to do, any studies that I want to do. This is the setting that I use. So let's talk about DPI. So DPI is actually dot per inches. It determines how many dots are packed within 1 inch when you're printing it out. So it also determines how many pixels there are in the final output. When you want to work on Procreate and have your painting printed out, you need to at least have 150 to 300. So how do you know if you're going to use 150 or 300? That depends on how many layers you want. So let's say I know that 57 is not going to be enough, so I'm going to put it to 200, and then now I have 134 layers to work with. So this is how you gradually downgrade your DPI to the minimum of 150 to get more and more layers so that you can have more layers to work with. So now I'm going to show you what happens if I create this. So I'm going to tap on it. Okay, right here I'm going to go into Actions, Canvas, and Canvas Information. So right here I can see that this is my width, 210, 297, my DPI is 150. And my pixel width now is 1240 by 1754. This is the setting at 150 DPI, and I have about 240 layers to work with. So now I'm going to create another one and put it at 300 DPI, which is the usual size that I work with, and I'm going to create it. And now when you see the canvas info, you can see that the pixels have changed. It has become much larger because of the DPI. So this is how your DPI can control your pixel size in general when you create a canvas size that is not using pixel setting. So if you're using millimeter, centimeter, or inch, this is what will happen. You are creating the pixel size using the DPI. So this will determine how big and how many layers you get. So now I only get 57 layers, which is usually enough for me if I'm doing a portrait for Procreate tutorials or a study or something quick. And now let's talk about layers limit. For layers limit, let's look at this cheat sheet right here that I've already prepared in advance. So here you can already find out what RAM your iPad model is. So if you already know your iPad's RAM, you would know the amount of layers that you will get for the size that you typically use. For me, I typically use an A4 size. So today we will use the A4 size for our benchmark in the discussion. So if you have the maximum amount of RAM, which is 4 gig or 6 gig, you will get around 242 layers for the A4 size, which is more than enough. But if you are actually using any less than that, for example, if you are using the 1 gigabyte, you will actually only get 44 layers. But bear in mind that this table only represents sizes in 150 DPI. So if you're working at 300 dpi like I usually do, you will have a lot less layers compared to this. So refer to this table and download it from my website in order to refer to this table when you're creating your new canvas.
So let's say you have an iPad with inadequate amount of RAM and you do not have enough layers in your project, and you're thinking maybe you should get a new iPad. So you can either refer to episode 1 where I talk about choosing a new iPad for your Procreate, or there is actually a workaround. For the workaround, you have to wait for it in the series because this is actually episode 21 in Layers Part 4, where I will talk about how to work around with the issues of not having enough layers in Procreate.
And now let's talk about something else. So let's go back to the setting. And now that we have covered the dimensions, I am going to talk about the color profile. So for the color profile, you can see that we have a few settings here, but the main two dividing settings is RGB and CMYK. So usually if we are working for screen, for broadcast, for digital, we are using RGB, and if we are doing for print, we are going for CMYK. So if we are in CMYK, usually I just leave it at CMYK profile, and if you are not sure and you want to double check, you can always ask your printer what kind of color profile are they using, and you can just switch accordingly before you begin your artwork. So back to RGB, because I'm using the iPad 3rd Gen right here, this is the iPad Pro 3rd Gen, I have an additional setting called Display P3. So Display P3 gets a lot more color range, and if you are working on the iPad Pro and you want to take advantage of that, you can use the Display P3, but bear in mind that the artwork that you create or the other extra color information will only be visible on screens that have this same setting. So screens that are older might not be able to see the same amount of color information. So here we have time-lapse setting. So time-lapse setting is where you can set your time-lapse setting. Like when you create your artwork, you will start recording everything you do and create a video out of that is time-lapsed. So mine was set at 180p because I don't usually export my time-lapse anymore. I use a camera on top and record my everything. And then you can decide how good the quality is. And if you set it at lossless, it will be really huge. So if you set it at this, and then it's going to be huge, like seriously huge file. So this will blow up your storage size if your storage size is not enough. If you check this high efficiency video coding tab here, it will actually compress your video. So this will compress it to H.265 instead of H.264. So this is actually quite an efficient compression if you want to compress your video and make sure that the size is a little bit smaller. So if you want to go for the maximum setting, checking this might be a good idea. And then for canvas property, you can immediately set the background color, or if you want the background hidden. So what does it mean if you want your background hidden? If you check this, it just means that you are starting on a transparent canvas like this. So you get a transparent canvas. Like if you export it, you have to export it as PNG or TIFF, which is the only two options that can support transparency. Or you can also use the animated options, GIF or PNG, which will also give you the same transparency. But if let's say you decided that you do not want this transparency, you can always just check this again, and then you can have your background color again.
Okay guys, thank you so much for watching today's tutorial. Tomorrow we'll be talking all about multitasking and reference companion. So don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and see you tomorrow. Bye!